Welcome to this episode of Against the Mountains of Madness. I'm your host, Jason.
And I'm John C. Wright.
And on this season finale episode, we're going to talk about the War Against Utopia. So, I guess the first question, John, the War Against Utopia. Should utopia be in quotes?
No, because here's my theory. I think that all utopias are actually dystopias. Starting with Sir Thomas More, St. Thomas More, everything you're describing as being utopian turns out to be the place that you wouldn't ever want to live and you wouldn't want to raise your children there, okay? The one thing I liked about old Star Trek episodes is they always went out of their way to destroy these utopias because they were just all you had to become a non-human being to live in them. You had to lose human nature to live in them. But when we say the war against utopia, what we're really talking about is the war against the leftist, progressive, Marxist or cultural Marxist, pseudo-Marxist,
Gnostics.
Who thinks that human nature can be improved. The Gnostics, they're part of an esoteric tradition that goes back through Hermeticism to Gnosticism, which believes that that human nature is not fallen, that human nature has no original sin. So when they look around at the evils of the world, since they don't blame mankind for the sins of mankind, they don't blame human nature. They don't believe human nature because they believe in evolution and they think that we're going to improve. They blame some social institution.
Yeah.
So, just in brief, the Marxist blames private property as the institution that causes all trouble. Rousseau blames civilization as the institution that causes trouble. The feminist blames the masculine and feminine roles in society.
The patriarchy.
And the gender theory, the patriarchy. The feminist blames the patriarchy. And the gender theory advocate
Who knows what they blame?
Blames they're quite clear. You can read their insane diatribes. They blame the masculine and feminine roles in society, the concept of masculinity and femininity. And so each of these utopians, to create his utopia, says all we have to do is eliminate law and order, private property. And the racists blame whiteness.
Yep.
They blame the racial differences.
Yep.
Racial differences, the patriarchy, or gender roles. Once we eliminate those social institutions, utopia will erupt of its own accord for no reason, because they also don't believe in cause and effect. So things will just flower into perfection once we shed enough blood to eliminate enough of the people who support civilization, private property, sexual roles, racial distinctions, etc. Et
Well, I mean,
so the utopians. I don't think we need to put utopians in quotes because there's no such thing as a real utopia. There's no heaven on earth. Heaven on earth is hell.
this is true.
So we should make war against it in the name of paradise, in the name of the heaven that we hope for in the next life. It's not coming in this life. Sorry, gang, that's not going to happen.
Well, I mean, it worked for the communists in Cambodia. They shot 1 in 3 people in Cambodia, and look at the paradise they built. Wait.
Yeah, I think it was 1 in 4, but yes, it was. The actual figure for a democide is, I have it here in front of me, it is 100 million slain by communism since 1918 AD.
Well,
100 million people have been sacrificed to this stupid idea.
Well, the Khmer Rouge...
For the sake of nothing.
Oh, yeah.
For the sake of nothing, for no gain.
I agree. Oh, no, I was going to say the Khmer Rouge have... There's lots of ways of slicing who are the worst, but the Khmer Rouge have... Because I think they killed about 5 million people, which, when you compare it to Stalin or Mao, is a drop in the bucket, unfortunately. But they have the unique distinction of they started with a population of about 15 million, if memory serves. They're the communists that killed the greatest, basically, percentage of their population in search of their dream. And I mean, they were shooting people with glasses for being intellectuals. So,
right.
You might want to lose those if you go
I have two
there.
comments to make about that. Greetings, world. This is John C. Wright. I and my compatriot, Jason Rennie, take up arms weekly against the mountains of madness that are afflicting and overwhelming the modern age. You are welcome here among like-minded souls, and I hope we have provided a work of insight, hope, or humor, and perhaps an explanation of the insanity that is the modern age. For more content and conversation on these and other fascinating topics of philosophy, science fiction, and current events, please visit our Substack at atmom.substack.com. Tips, bribes, and generous patronage are warmly encouraged. Thank you. One is that yes, they win the award for the greatest percentage, but not the greatest raw numbers.
No, of course.
The greatest raw numbers goes to Mao.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Second is shooting people for wearing glasses actually makes more sense than what happened during the Red Terror under Lenin and Stalin, when his ministers were ordered to kill people to fill out quotas, and whether or not they were guilty of anything was, and they had this in writing, was not taken into consideration. They were merely supposed to kill people for the sake of killing people, and killing people arbitrarily was seen as better than killing people for some reason, because the arbitrary deaths helped to terrify the population because no one knew who would be next. You see, that's what's at the end of the road we're on.
Yeah.
But where that road begins is when you say, well, I think that life is unfair, and so to correct it, let's give the government a little more power. I think that sometimes the courts come to a bad decision, so let's suspend the rule of law in this one or two cases. I think it would be nice if everyone agreed with me on, not just on reading and writing and arithmetic, but everyone agreed with me on political matters. So let's politicize the schools and make them into socialist education camps, training camps. I think it would be nice if the news didn't stir up controversy by ever showing any disagreement with me. So anyone who disagrees with me, I want the news to portray as absolute devils from hell and perfectly insane and people who have to be killed to preserve the social. I want everyone to be a threat to democracy who doesn't agree with my totalitarianism. Okay?
Yeah.
I would like the government to actually run the economy, because I don't trust the free market. I think the free market has abuses associated with it. Maybe we should throw in some wage and price controls. Maybe the government should make sure big businesses are too big to fail, so that those guys don't lose their jobs. And I would also like to have riots in the streets to make my point really clear. I want to have people burning down places where inner city blacks live in the name of blacks. For justice for blacks. Let's drive out all the small businesses. Let's kill and drive out and burn out all the minority-owned businesses from the inner cities in the name of helping minorities. In the name of helping. So you see where this goes?
I agree.
Just one after another after another.
I suppose.
You know, and it starts with little things. It says, "Hey, why can't we have the next Star Trek? Why can't we have a black woman as the chief officer of the Enterprise and make her a lesbian and in a wheelchair?"
Oh, goodness me.
And there's nothing wrong with that. Why don't we eliminate all racial couples who are not mixed race from every TV commercial ever, so that no black ever marries a white ever again on TV? And in fairness, let's make sure that no Orientals get into our schools because they're too smart. That's where it starts. Okay, it starts with what looks like little things, but they're always unfair, and you and I know they're unfair. And where do they lead to? They lead to the killing fields. They lead to the gulag.
Of course. I would note, though, I mean, like, part of the difficulty is the critique, well, I don't know if I'd say their critique of capitalism is correct, but large market economies, for example, have problems in them. I mean, I don't think they have a reasonable solution, but capitalism can be rapacious, and it requires it's. I guess capitalism is like self-governing. It needs to be. You need a moral people to do it. So once your moral fabric collapses, these systems won't work anymore. Like these systems will end in hells of their own. Libertarians are an example of that, I guess. Like libertarians, strongly Christian people could be quite libertarian, but libertarianism as your substitute religion, akin to Marxism, will just lead to the darkest, most terrible place. It'll lead to an equally awful place.
Sure, because every place will be Las Vegas. And here's the problem with libertarianism. I used to be libertarian.
Yeah. Well, see,
I used to be libertarian. It will be worse. Let me finish the sentence.
Sorry.
I used to be libertarian, and I stopped because I realized that the libertarian values promoted by the libertarian free market, unbridled free market, would lead to plutocracy, not to libertarianism. If you expect a big business not to use its vast wealth to buy votes and to change the laws to favor it, to move away from your libertarian utopia toward a plutocracy, you're insane. There's no the problem is that human beings are fallen. Here's the thing: libertarians fit into my scheme. Libertarians also do not believe in original sin. They also don't believe in human nature. They believe that government restrictions is the original sin, and once you eliminate all government restrictions on liberty, you'll have the utopia will flower of its own accord for no reason. Will spring up out of nothing.
Well, it depends on the libertarian, because
yes.
Because I think libertarians, at least to some degree, the non-crazy ones recognize, or the non-utopian ones recognize that man has fallen. Even the atheist ones, they don't phrase it that way. They talk about man being essentially innately selfish and out
they
for
do
himself.
Say,
but that's the same thing. I mean, that's the fall by other. That's the fall by other me. That was the fall in other words. Sorry, go.
One of the bumper sticker slogans of libertarianism is "Utopia is not an option." They don't regard their approach as utopian, but as eminently practical. They just think that the government restrictions cause more problems than they solve. And for 99 times out of 10, I think they're right. The 10th time out of 10, however, I think the Catholic Church is right. If you read the Catholic social teachings, they talk about localism, sometimes called distributism. They talk about trying to keep the power local to yourself. And they're not trying to look for a clever system of laws and customs to get you out of the problem.
No.
Libertarians are trying to solve the problem. They're a political movement. They're trying to solve the problem through politics, you see. But all you're going to end up with is a bunch of drug addicts who sleep around because you no longer have laws against adultery and pornography and drug abuse, you see. And I'm sorry, a society hopped up on goofballs is just going to vote itself into more and more pleasures, and that's going to be a dead end. So even their non-utopian utopia, I would class as a utopia, and I would say we have to make war on it.
Yes, I agree.
Right now, we're in danger of anarchist totalitarianism. The danger from libertarianism being too much. I'm more likely to drown to death in the middle of a desert than I am to suffer the problems of too much liberty.
I agree.
Except in the sexual areas. Okay, right now in America, we in effect have a libertarian matriarchy running our sexual customs, and it's completely insane. It's like something from ancient Babylon where they castrate the priests and put them in dresses and call them women.
Is it though?
It's the worship of the old gods, as far as I can tell.
I'd agree with that observation. I don't think it's an excess of liberty there though, because well, maybe it is on one side, but that excess of liberty is matched with an insanely totalitarian oppression on the other side. Like it's not a free for all for everybody.
Right.
It's madness.
They complain about the Puritans of the Victorian era, but we can complain about the impuritans, because whenever you portray, if a sports figure gets up and says to a audience of Catholic women that their greatest vocation will be as wives and mothers, the guy gets criticized and they try to cancel him. They try to get him fired for expressing an opinion with which they disagree.
Did you notice how a lot of that went down though? Like, because
it gave me hope.
No, one of the interesting things I thought was the complaint was, why are you okay with this, but you were not okay with Colin Kaepernick and Rapone, the lesbian soccer player? And it's like, well, do you notice they don't understand the difference? He was a Catholic guy at a Catholic university giving a Catholic speech that he was invited to give, whereas the others
his own time.
Others want to do it as the others want to do it instead of their job. That's the difference.
Right. The problem I have with taking these people seriously is I can never actually convince myself that they really believe what they're saying and that they really can't see the difference. Maybe they can. I mean, in my brain, I understand that there are people who can talk themselves into believing anything, but it's so illogical. It's so unreasonable that I have to believe it's demonic possession. They're hypnotized. I don't see how a guy who's not hypnotized simply will fail to understand the difference between on your time and on my time. Okay? I paid for a ticket to come in here to see you play ball. I want you to see you play ball. I don't care about what your political opinions are. They can't even understand the concept of I don't care what your political opinions are. To them, politics is everything. Politics politicizing the Justice Department in America, politicizing our court system, to them does not seem wrong because they don't see anything as not being political. They think you should use the sports arena to put across their message and to punish their enemies. They think you should use entertainment to put across the message. They think you should use the news, not to report the news, but to put across their message.
Well,
and they also think that you should use the court system, especially in New York, to put across their political message and punish your adversaries, not because they've broken the law, but just because they are your adversaries. And we saw that this week.
I would note, I think the reason they do that is this is their religion. And if you look at I don't want to. I'm just going to say it. Look at countries ruled by Sharia law in the Middle East and stuff. They behave in exactly the same fashion. All of it is used to enforce their religion and force it on everybody else and make everybody conform to it. All of the institutions are oriented towards that to a large degree. The people that are mad for this idea want it to be even more so. Look at ISIS. I mean, you basically deal like the
Right.
difference between these people and ISIS is they don't have the amount of power they want yet, but also like it's the badging on the top is different, but the underlying methodology and I mean the thing is.
Allow me to interrupt. What you're trying to say in a word is that leftism is Marxist Sharia law.
Yeah, but the thing is, like, I mean, like, we're Catholics. We don't behave like this. But the reason we don't behave like this is not, oh, we're so good and we're so much better than everyone else. It's just we're forbidden to do it. Like, the master said, no, this is not how you do it. Bad.
Right.
Like, bad, naughty, don't.
Well, we also have a religion. We also have a religious religion. People without religion turn their politics into their religion.
But
now, I see that religion informs every part of
course.
society. I think that all things should work for the greater glory of God. The law, the entertainment industry, the news. I think a newsman should do his job honestly and well for the greater glory of God. I think that God touches every aspect of life. But then again, I'm religious. If I were a leftist, I would think leftism should touch every aspect of your life because that's my religion. Now, it's an anti-Christ religion. It's an anti-human religion. It's an anti-reason religion. So I would try to get rid of mankind and Christ and logic in everything I touched, which is what we see around us these days.
Yeah, but I mean, well, that's what I was going to say. But like, look at look at some of the excesses of the Reformation in like Calvin's Geneva and things like that. Look at the excesses of the Catholic Church. People will point to many of them are. They're frequently over the top parodies.
They're exaggerated, but they.
I think we can agree.
Even Dante, who was on our side, even Dante saw that when the Catholic Church gets involved in worldly affairs, it gets corrupted.
Well, I mean,
it goes wrong.
like that's like I mean, we could people because I'm sure people listening who are going, "Brr, the Catholic Church has done lots of bad things." Yeah, it has. I agree. But
Sure.
that being said, like, nothing. Like, I don't think you could historically demonstrate anything like the behavior in under communism or the behavior of groups like ISIS. People will claim the Crusaders behaved like that or the Inquisition behaved like that, but none of that's true. I mean,
No,
like
true.
none of like the
Just in terms of the raw numbers, the Inquisition ordered the execution of like 125
but
people
even in terms
over 200
even
years.
in terms,
it's a drop in the bucket, and the Inquisition was meant to be reconciliatory.
Well, yeah,
in any
that's
case.
it.
It was trying to get people to change
but
their
even
mind.
in terms of even in terms of even if you just ignore the numbers and look at the procedures and things like they're night and day when you actually look at what actually happened and look at their actual records and things like that. Not the delusional fantasies of English reformers with an axe to grind against Spain and things like that.
And let me also hasten to add that this idea that the secular power and the temporal power, that the secular power and the spiritual power should be separate, that goes all the way back to ancient Judaism, when the priesthood and the kingship were separate. We did not have priest kings. The Pharaoh in Egypt was a priest king. The monarchs of Babylon were also priestly kings, as were those of Japan and China. It's a commonplace thing. Caesar was given divine honors. Divus Caesar, divine Caesar, was worshipped as a god after his death. Sometimes, in the case of Caligula, before. Okay, so the people who want to combine secular and spiritual power.
This is how it ends.
That's a Muslim idea. It's also a Calvinist idea. It's also an Anglican idea. Once King Henry VIII declared that he was the Pope of England, that he was the head of the Church of England. All those reformers, the thing they're trying to reform away from is what God's will is in terms of keeping those things separate. You say. Now, the way these guys are doing it in these days is they're doing it all by stealth and surreptitiously, and they only use coercion when they get enough power.
We're reaching that point where the mask is coming off.
So basically, we're in a situation where in order for you and I to commit a war against utopia, we have to recognize what institutions they've successfully captured, and it's all of them basically. It's almost all of them, and what can be done against those institutions. The first and foremost one that just happened in my country this week to the major political party leader of the opposition party happened in a New York courtroom. The guy was basically just found guilty of running for president.
Yep.
Okay, and the legal theory under which it was done was so flimsy that no lawyer I know. Now, I went to law school and I practiced law for some years. No lawyer I know can seriously, without breaking into a grin or a wince of disapproval, talk about what this theory is. If you're willing to listen to for just a boring second,
Sure.
I'll tell you what the if you want to get into the weeds, I'll tell you what the actual legal theory is. The legal theory is that if you falsify a business record, that's illegal under New York law. But you have to falsify the business record for some criminal intent, for some criminal reason. It's like a conspiracy. You can't be found guilty of a conspiracy unless there was actually a crime that you were conspiring to commit. Okay? And in this case, Donald J. Trump, a presidential candidate of the United States, who is actually up in the polls above his rival, demented Joe Biden, was found guilty of paying a lawyer and calling that a legal expense. He called it a legal expense because he paid a lawyer. Okay, that was not done by him. That was done by one of his accountants of his vast, financial empire. The expense, according to the legal theory of the Alvin Bragg, the prosecutor who ran for office on the promise that he would use his power as a political weapon against his political adversaries. He got elected on the promise that he would get Trump, which is to say, abuse his power, because they're supposed to be neutral. They're supposed to be politically neutral. They're supposed to be nonpartisan. Okay. So the already the corrupt DA, I can call him that because he was corrupt from day one. He was corrupt from the day he got elected because he was elected on a promise to abuse his power.
That was his platform. I will be corrupt.
I will be corrupt, right? Because he, unlike a Christian, he decides to commingle the secular and the temporal, the secular and the spiritual power, the legal power. So his theory was that the falsification of the business records was actually a campaign contribution, an in-kind campaign contribution to pay off a Stormy Daniels from slandering the president and spreading a libel that she had slept with him. Okay. Now, I call it a libel because she herself, in writing and under oath, has testified to the fact that they never slept together. But even if she had, that's not a crime, and it should be, but it's not. And he wasn't. But he wasn't put on trial for adultery, which maybe he should be. Nor was he putting on trial for paying hush money, because paying a non-disclosure agreement is perfectly legal. You know. And you can pay it for any reason or no reason. You can pay it because what's the person saying true or what's the person saying false.
Just shut up.
Shut up. Okay, right. Now it was allegedly, but if you paid someone hush money and you put it on the record as a campaign finance contribution, that would be a violation of campaign finance laws, because you're only allowed to put it down as a campaign finance contribution things directly related to the campaign. The theory is that he only wanted to hush her up for the sake of his election prospects, not because of any bad publicity otherwise that might affect himself or his family or his business. Okay? Do you see how baroque this theory is already becoming?
Oh, yeah.
Now, Furthermore, the campaign was over by that time. By the time the entry was made.
So she was.
So he's being accused of conspiring to commit a crime that he could not commit without a time machine. He also has been accused of trying to falsify the tax record because if he paid his lawyer a wage, that's taxed at a higher rate than if he's paying him recompensing him for an expense. But under the theory of this case, he was paying him as a recompense for expense. So Donald Trump has received the full force of the New York law on the grounds that he overpaid his taxes, that he falsified a record to conspire to overpay his taxes. Moreover, there's a statute of limitation on the falsification of records law, which he had exceeded. But if the underlying crime is a felony, then you can extend the statute of limitations. So the statute of limitations had run. The federal crime of election fraud is temporally impossible, is outside of the jurisdiction of New York, because that's local jurisdiction, and federal of campaign finance law is federal, and the theory doesn't make sense, and the instructions to the jury by the corrupt, crooked judge who was required by law to recuse himself because he had made public statements against the plaintiff, against the defendant, okay? And he had a family member who had a financial interest in opposing the defendant. He's required by law to recuse himself. He ignored that law. And he gave unconstitutional jury instructions to the jurors, telling them they did not need to agree as to the underlying crime. There is a Supreme Court case that says otherwise. Okay? I can't quote it off the top of my head, but I know that it's there because I'm a lawyer and I've seen it.
Well,
Okay? So the whole thing from start to finish was unconstitutional, illegal, outside the statute of limitations, outside their jurisdiction, and every single day I saw some other obvious reversible error. Okay? This judge just does not care that he's going to be reversed. The payoff is in or something. I don't know what is going on.
My non-lawyerly thoughts on that would be two things. Have we checked Epstein's flight logs to see if the judge is on it? I'm guessing they've got something on him or someone he cares about, assuming they haven't just threatened them or whatever.
Or they could have just offered him a book deal for $1 billion
potentially, something like that. Yeah, they've bought him off, or they've probably got something over him because he's behaving illegally here.
Do not underestimate the intoxicating power of becoming famous among your peers. This guy's name will be feted and celebrated for the next 10 years among the people, among the Democrat Party in New York, where he lives and moves and has been. They will slap him on the back, and they will say, "You're the guy who got Trump."
I did hear it.
Don't underestimate that.
Do you know the phrase "Your name is mud"?
Yes.
Do you know where that comes from?
Comes from a guy named Mudd, the surgeon who helped the actor who shot John Wilkes Booth shot Abraham Lincoln in the theater, and John Wilkes Booth was wounded when he leapt from the balcony box and hurt his leg, and as he was getting away, he stopped at the house of Dr. Mudd to get healed.
That's correct.
And Dr. Mudd's name was then dragged through the mud because of the obvious pun, but because he was infamous now as having helped a notorious criminal.
Well,
and I know this because every time my father would drive us home when I was a little kid in the car, in Maryland, we would drive past the Dr. Mudd's house, and he would say, "There's Dr. Mudd's house," and he would tell the story of who Dr. Mudd was and why he was famous for being infamous.
Well, I think
so. Yes, I know where the phrase comes from.
But the Lincoln assassination was a little while ago now. That phrase has entered.
We in America still remember it.
Of course, but I mean, that guy's name is still associated with. In effect, he just did what most doctors would do, which I've seen a lot of doctors say. I don't care who they are. You know, my oath is to help people who are in need. So he treated him. I think this judge's name might end up as a similar epithet. That was someone else's observation, but
we also remember who Benedict Arnold was.
Yeah,
and for the same reason. And I'm sorry to say that Senator McCarthy's name, is still used as a byword for someone who accuses people falsely as a witch hunt. when in fact everyone he
right.
accused in real life was actually guilty, and we know it. Historians
they were
can
all
prove it.
communists.
We knew it at the time because of the Winona cables, and when the Kremlin fell, when the Berlin Wall fell, and we got access to the Kremlin records. We got the pay stubs of the secret police in Russia. We got the pay stubs. We know they were in the pay of the Soviets. There's no question. It's not historically up for debate. Everyone Senator McCarthy accused was a commie spy.
Yeah. Oh, so, I know. But that's the thing.
So Judge Engoron's name might be the name of a saint among the left for the rest of our lives because of this event.
Well, I think when it all blows up, but the other side of it is, I mean, I don't think they care that this will likely just be thrown out on appeal. It is so ridiculously irregular that it'll like even the liberal judges will go like, look, we can't let this stand. I don't think they care that it doesn't stand. In fact, the liberal judges will be told, it doesn't matter, you can throw it out. You don't have to destroy the entire judicial system by holding this farce up. Because apparently the Biden campaign is already calling Trump a felon. Like they've got what they want from it. He's a convicted felon. That's all they want to be able to say. They don't care beyond that. It's like when we were talking before, you were saying, why did Pelosi seek to indict Trump?
All Nancy Pelosi wanted to do was to count coup on this guy so she could have the bragging rights to say, I impeached him twice, maybe 3 times. She didn't actually expect to do anything with it. It was just a pure act of malice, meant merely to be malicious, to try to get it into the historical record that he was a bad man. It wasn't done for any political reason. It was done for a religious reason. They wanted to put upon him the pointed hat of a heretic and point their fingers at him and go, boo! Boo!
Yes.
That's all it was for.
Oh, yes,
it was
of course.
for the publicity. It was a publicity stunt.
Yeah, it was done so the media could say, or so the media could scream, he was impeached. Yeah, it wasn't done to actually achieve anything. Well, it was done to achieve that end.
And it was revenge. It was retaliation for the Republicans impeaching Clinton when Clinton lied on the
Clinton did something impeachable. I mean, that was probably
not enough to get him thrown out of office as he should have been, but it was. But the line was crossed by the Republicans when we did that, you see, and so they wanted retaliation.
Yeah. Now
they've just crossed the line here, so I'm hoping, in fact, I'm praying to the good Lord that every local prosecutor from Podunk County, Mississippi, will simply bring in Joe Biden and Barack Obama for every violation of parking meters, murder, a Jeffrey Epstein client list, and what happened to the pool guy at Obama's estate. You know, every single misdemeanor they've ever committed. And we can, according to now, we can change the laws to expand the statute of limitations to allow people to sue who otherwise could not sue, and do that just to get them. And once they get a taste of this, maybe they'll back off. Maybe not, but it's. I think justice demands we retaliate in kind.
Yeah, they won't though.
They might not, but they are cowardly, so it's hard to say. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. I think you're right. I fear that you're right, though.
My expectation is they won't retaliate in kind because, for whatever reason, they still believe in the system. Although I did hear an interesting comment from Tim Pool the other day.
What do you mean they believe in the system? Of course they don't believe in the system. What are you talking about?
The conservatives.
The
people you want to do the retaliating believe in the system. So
it's against. It would be against their nature and their philosophy to use it for a political reason.
Exactly.
Yes.
They actually have enough principles, roughly. I mean, there are some that probably will, because even though they have principles, they understand that, well, if these are the ground rules you want to set, that's fine. We can play by them. You don't want to set these ground rules, and let me show you why.
Right.
Which I think is a perfectly reasonable thing to do.
The problem with the right is that we do have principles. I realize that sounds like boasting. And sometimes your principles have to give way to practicality. And whenever you do that, you're kind of stepping into the enemy territory. Because what makes the enemy, what makes the utopian the enemy, is his motto is the ends justify the means. And we don't believe that, you see. We think the ends have to be lawful and the means have to be lawful.
Agreed.
So during wartime, when you do things to deceive the enemy, or you play tricks on the enemy, or you commit terrible acts against the enemy, that always galls us, as it should. We should be reluctant to do this. But myself, I think the Rubicon has been crossed. I think once Caesar is over the Rubicon with his troops, you either gather the troops to fight him or you lose.
Well, the thing is, we say, oh, we have principles. I think that's partially true, because I think it's true we have principles, but I think...
Let me hasten to say, before you go on, we have principles compared to them. Their principle is win at any cost. Their principle is I'm a victim, so no matter what I do to you, it's justified. Their principle is pity me so that I can burn and loot at will and you can't criticize me. That's their principle. Their principle is my side always.
Of
the
course.
Party is everything.
Yes, power is
Our principles are we should have the same rules. We should have the same rules for you and for me. That's
sort of,
we actually believe in the golden rule.
Well, no, but I mean also, like, we have principles, but I think people will claim to have principles and to be sticking by their principles as an excuse to be cowardly. Because it's a perfectly principled stance to say, you don't want to do this, but if you do this, and these are the rules you want to make, I will show you why you don't want to do this. Let me teach you why this is a bad idea.
It's not always cowardice. There's a tension between principles and practicality.
I agree.
There always has been, there always will be.
I agree, but I think for some people, the claim to be principled is a cover for their own cowardice. They don't want to pick this fight because...
I respectfully disagree. I feel that way. I feel the same way you're talking about Christians who claim to be pacifists. And pacifism seems to me is a perfectly noble profession, but it's not in keeping with the Christian teaching. But there are people like Amish who simply will not kill, even in self-defense. Okay? I don't think that's always cowardice.
Oh,
I think sometimes
no.
it actually is principle.
No. It's not always cowardice. I agree.
But your point,
but
sometimes it is cowardice. Yes, that's true.
I think for some people they don't want to fight.
Let me also hasten to add this. Let me interrupt to add this. Sometimes you do want to be afraid of starting a civil war. I'm not looking forward to the next civil war. I think it would be terrible.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a feasible way to get out of this box we're in, is to fight our way out. I would rather try other means.
It's fair to say the ammo box is a means of last resort, and also,
yes.
I mean, also historically, the simple reality is revolutions don't usually end well. You usually end up worse off than when you started. You can look at the American Revolution and go, well, look how this one ended. And sure, it ended all right, but even that was a close-run thing that could have gone completely off the rails several times.
And it was not a revolution that was fought. Each colony still had its own system of government, its own structure of laws and customs that was not disarrayed during the fighting. It wasn't the cities against the countryside. It wasn't the French Revolution where the local populace was trying to kill their own neighbors. All we're trying to do is stop the British from landing troops and to maintain our British rights as British citizens and maintain British common law. It's the only conservative revolution in history. Now, the coming American Revolution, the War Against Utopia, is going to be the rural, the heartland, the Bible Belt, the Rust Belt against Chicago, New York, and Hollywood, against D.C. You see, and how are they going to do that? They're going to cut off the cities from their train lines and stuff. I mean, it's going to be a terrible mess. It's going to be urban fighting. It's going to be street fighting. If there's any way to legally get us out of this box, I'd rather see that. But unfortunately, that depends on the enemy. The enemy gets to decide when you make peace and make war because they're the ones who start the war. They're the ones who cross the Rubicon. They're the ones who decide to corrupt your legal system so that no one trusts the legal system.
Yeah.
And if no one trusts the legal system, they're not going to go to the legal system for recompense. They're going to do a Hatfield and McCoy thing. They're going to take matters into their own hands.
Well, I thought...
Now, maybe local authorities will start first. Maybe the sheriff and the mayor will start first and just say, we're ignoring the federal government at this point.
Well, this was Tim Pool's observation I thought was interesting. He observed that today in the cities, the left basically doesn't recognize the legitimacy of the federal government in the US. and the roving bands of looters causing flash mobs and looting stores and things in some of the big cities, like San Francisco is destroyed at this point by the behavior. These people don't recognize the government as legitimate either. They just do whatever they like.
Did he explain why he regarded that as a disregard of the federal government? Because to me, it looks like the local government, George Soros has bribed the local DAs not to enforce the law, and the local DAs and the local legislatures have declared as a matter of law that in California, that theft under $700 or whatever it is, $1,000 is not prosecutable.
Yeah, but
they basically made it legal to loot, and so people started looting.
But do you think these people...
And that whenever any local law said it's not okay to loot and actually punished the people and actually allowed the police to do their job and chase them down and punish them, that problem went away.
Oh, I agree.
I don't see that the federal government has any involvement at all in that particular. It's a psyop. It's a psychological warfare operation.
I agree.
Done by international banks to try and destroy our social fabric.
I agree.
I mean, is that not clear?
Yeah, no. I mean, I get that, but like these local groups and the Antifa and that basically don't recognize the government as legitimate. They don't. It's not even they recognize them as an illegitimate. Well, Antifa probably recognize them as an illegitimate government that needs to be removed. But these roving bands of looters don't recognize any authority outside.
Oh, if you're talking on that level, no. Those guys
like that.
Those guys are either thugs who they're not politically motivated.
No,
they're just
but
thugs.
They don't recognize
Antifa is
the government.
Antifa is a well-funded anarchist group that is attempting to use Stage 5 communist overthrow techniques, and you can see Yuri Brezmanov's lecture on that matter to find out what stage is involved in that.
No, but I think the point he was driving at was these groups basically don't recognize the legitimacy of the government anymore. Whether it's just they ignore it because it doesn't really apply to them and the government leaves them alone. But he was saying, someone was saying, well, what does it look like when the right does the same thing? And he said, they won't form roving bands that go around the cities and try, or, form an Antifa type group that tries to overthrow the government. They'll just look inward to their local communities and they'll basically just stop paying taxes and stop recognizing the federal government and just say, well, I don't know who you are, so I don't owe you anything, go away. And when the federal the simple truth is, it doesn't matter at what scale you do it. Societies can only function because people are willing to go along with them. There are a couple of 100,000, maybe 100,000, a couple of 100,000 federal law enforcement officials for 350 million Americans. If the people aren't willing to cooperate with them, there's nothing they can do about it. Look at New York City. There are 30,000 New York police for how many millions of people? And New York is imploding as we see because people no longer, large segments of the population no longer care what the police think and do what they like.
I respectfully disagree, but very strong with Tim Pool's analysis.
Fair enough.
The reason why New York City is going to hell is because the government stopped enforcing the law.
Course.
They gave the signal flag to illegal invaders, migrants, and they gave the signal flag, the go signal, to looters. And they said, we will not prosecute looters.
True.
And they said to the police, if you stop the looters, we will punish you.
I agree.
You will not be able to afford a lawyer. You will go through our legal system, and our legal system convicts everyone it accuses.
But
because we don't actually have a real legal system.
Sure, no, completely agree. But but it doesn't stop it. But the looters aren't there going, or the criminals of New York are not there going, well, I can steal, I can loot this store and that's fine. No one will stop me as long as I take a few things. People are walking down the street and just physically assaulting people at random, not even to rob them, just to inflict violence on them.
They're also being punished, certainly, because they're also. But in the 1980s, Americans also dumped all of the insane people out onto the streets, and once the broken window theory of law enforcement in New York is that if you don't police the small things, the big things will get out of hand.
That's what's happening now.
Well, obviously, the opposite theory is if you permit the big crimes, then the small crimes will also get out of hand.
Well, what's happening at the moment is the small crimes are being ignored.
And one other thing in mind. Keep another thing in mind. The news is encouraging blacks to assault whites at random because they publicize these things and reward them with fame.
Look.
And and the schools are telling people whites are the devil and need to be destroyed.
I agree.
The entertainment industry
agree with that.
Always portraying whites as the devil. So all the social institutions are primed to self-destruct.
I agree.
Because everything that's going on. Here's the motto: the worse it is, the better it is. That's the motto of the enemy. The enemy wants to make things as the enemy does not care which side you're on. They just want you to fight with your brother.
Yeah, they want to make it so bad that
the
you
enemy
will
doesn't
invite
care.
them in. I said
What's that?
They want to make it so bad you will invite them in to take over.
Right. To take over. Just to stop the looting. You see? Right. But the problem is that we know you can stop the looting just by enforcing the laws as they already stand on the books, and if you just let the police do their job. Everyone on the right at least knows why the crime rate's gone up. It's not because it's because you have a flood of people who aren't from this country living among us, including, as Trump often says, other countries have opened their prisons and opened their insane asylums and just sent all their worst people over the border. You have a flood of people who are servants of Red China, Chinese young men who are soldier age coming in here to do bad things deliberately. You have an international World Economic Forum and Monetary Fund whose goal is to cooperate with Barack Obama to decrease the power of America in the world because Obama regards America as the problem. And so once America is weakened, that will be to the benefit of the world, he sees. He said so in public, correct me if I'm wrong.
Oh no,
All these social institutions are working toward the same goal. But I think the point that we're both circling around and want to say is two things. The worse it is, the better it is. Okay? That means that everything that they say and do is meant to create more division among us, more mistrust, and more despair. They want us to be black-pilled so we don't vote.
Yes.
They want us to be filled with despair. They want, how can I say this politely? Before I went on Twitter, I never met a single Protestant who said that Catholics worship Mary and that she's a devil. Now I get that in my feed once a day.
Oh, God, it's tedious.
I don't think Elon Musk is doing it deliberately, but I think it is being deliberately done by the algorithm. I think that people are trying to stir up enmity between everyone they can, as often as they can.
Yeah.
Do the blacks in America actually have a legitimate reason to hate and fear the whites? Do they really need separate graduations so they don't get lynched by roving gangs of angry white men?
They probably will if they keep going the way they're going.
Yes, they will if they keep going the way they're going. Right, because they're trying to build the enemy is trying to build up as much enmity between brothers as he can.
Oh no, I agree.
I mean, I myself have more in common with Thomas Sowell than I have with Joe Biden, and one of those guys is black and the other guy's white. I don't have any racial loyalty to Joe Biden. He's a member of my church. He's a Catholic.
Sort of.
I don't have any. He is a baptized Christian who goes to mass.
Yeah.
He's a bad Catholic, but he is in the church. I'm sorry. Well, you can't once you're in, you can't be thrown out unless he's excommunicated, and he has.
Yeah, I think he's probably done things that would warrant it, though. But look, I agree.
Oh, certainly. There's no question whatsoever. The Catholic Church. Now, I should say that's one of the things we have to reform. It may be the first thing on the list is we have to have the church be thrown back under the control of Christ and get it away from the Lavender Hill mob, and get it away from the pedophiles, and get it away from the homosexuals.
Yeah.
The enemy in the 1960s very deliberately put communists and homosexuals into our seminaries. And it was. I hate to remind people, because homosexuality is now a celebrated virtue when it used to be thought of as a vice. It was thought that if you went into the church, you could live a life without a female companionship, and no one would look askance at you. You see, but it was also thought that they could control themselves because they were sinners. They thought they could have divine help in fighting the sin. Not that it would be indulged in and then covered up. Okay. Well, all we have to do is do the same thing. All we have to do is send our young men into the seminaries. So all you women out there, quit your day jobs, have your husband support you, have 10 kids, and send 6 of them into the seminary. And have the other 5 work themselves to death in the free market. That's the answer to save the church. It'll take a generation or two, but God's on our side.
Yeah.
You see. Now, the women are going to say to me, "Oh, but I'm sorry, the free market doesn't allow us to have a one-income family anymore." And I say, okay, fine. That's not a problem with the free market. It's a problem with the government. The government is driving up the price because they're trying to eliminate the middle class. They're trying to eliminate the middle class because worse is better. Okay? So use your vote, use your voice, do the same things they're doing to undermine the legitimacy, the appearance of legitimacy of their evil utopian schemes. Call evil evil. These Satanist pedophiles are devil worshippers. I hate to say it.
No,
the guys on
absolutely.
Epstein's list, when they went to their secret island to molest small children, some of them were sacrificed in rituals. I hate to sound like a conspiracy theory guy, but as best I can tell, that's where the evidence points. Okay, so these guys are. Let's say they weren't doing Satanist rituals. Let's say they were just molesting children. Death penalty for that. Why do we tolerate that for a second in civilized society? Are you out of your mind? Okay, but in order to do that, we also have to have society. No, we stopped being a civil society once we allowed for no-fault divorce. The gay divorce thing was just the cherry on top of the ice cream. The ice cream. I want to say. I don't want to say the word excretion in public, but it's an S sandwich. It's a bad thing. Okay. That was just the logical end result of the feminist doctrine that women have to be men in order to find happiness and salvation.
Yep.
Okay, women, don't listen to feminists. They're witches. They're out to get you. The early feminists were actually involved in the occult. I hate to say it. It sounds crazy, but they had seances and tabletop knocking, and they tried to communicate with spirits. And they wanted to get rid of the priesthood for the same reason they wanted to get rid of the patriarchy. They don't like masculine authority. Okay. So their menfolk told them that they should be feminists, and all women listen to their menfolk. I hate to say it, but they do. And so they followed along because women listen to their menfolk. Sorry, women, you do. So, to save the free market, we have to save the political order. To save the political order, we have to save the religious order. If the political order and the free market, once the free market is put back into the hands of the consumers, and to do that, you have to break up the incestuous relationship between Wall Street and D.C. You have to break up the international plutocracy of socialists. Okay, now that's harder, but that involves 3 things. That involves political action to break up monopolies, to break up the incestuous relationship between the government and the big businesses.
Yep.
Okay, those big businesses only exist as monopolies because the government supports them and funds them and bails them out. No more bailouts. Second, go ahead and boycott people who hate you. There's no reason to give your money to the Disney Corporation. The Disney Corporation hates you and they hate your children. Okay, I like Disney. I'm sorry. I wish they could reform. They were given a chance recently. They failed. Third, start your own business. Okay, so women, when you have 10 kids and put 6 of them into the church, the other 4 are going to have to work really hard to start their own business and build up other businesses to compete with these. But at the same time, that requires the political order to be reformed so that starting new businesses is legal and as feasible as possible.
It's not as difficult as it currently
No,
is.
none of this is easy. We're talking about a world war that's going to last generations, and I'm just trying to sum up what the strategy has to be to get control of the fake news and turn it back into real news, the socialist free market and turn it back into the free market, and the corrupt political order to turn it back into the law and order. And the Antichrist church to turn it back into the pro-Christ church. Those are the basic strategies. You have to use religion to stop the religious corruption. You got to use political tactics to get control of the political order. You have to use the free market to punish the anti-free market elements in the free market. You've got to use the entertainment industry. You got to tell stories, better stories than they're telling, to undermine the evils that are infecting the entertainment industry. The way to destroy Hollywood is with Bollywood. The way to destroy Hollywood is with independent authors.
On the plus side,
each one of these things, all you have to do to overcome them is think in the long term. It's not going to be done tomorrow.
Yeah, of course.
And use their own strengths. Use their own strength against them. Use politics to fight politics. Use religion to fight religion. Use the free market to fight the free market. Use entertainment to fight entertainment. And use real news to fight fake news. Don't listen to them anymore. Don't buy their products. And make sure once you have control of the political order to undermine their monopolies. There's no reason why the if the government were not actively cooperating with the press, if the government did not have CIA agents, Project Mockingbird agents in the press rooms, they would not have been turned into Pravda. It wasn't this way before World War II.
Well,
the press was relatively free back in the day.
I mean, for a lot of this, half the battle isn't even stopping them doing things. It's just if we stop supporting a lot of it, if we stop subsidizing and encouraging a lot of it, it'll collapse. I mean,
that is the way Reagan and Margaret Thatcher and the Pope overcame the Soviet Union. These creatures are parasites. All we have to do is stop feeding them our lifeblood. Stop treating them as if they are a fair and honest alternate point of view. They used to be. They're not. They're devil worshippers. They hate you. They hate mankind. They hate Christ. They don't believe in logic. They don't believe it. They want to shut you up. They don't want to debate with you. They want to punish you for thinking bad think. So yes, I agree. All we have to do is stop feeding them,
and
cut them out of the tax money.
And will go a long
these guys don't have jobs.
No,
these guys don't have jobs. This Antifa guys, they're being funded and supported. Cut the funding. Cut the welfare state. They're being funded from overseas by international bankers and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
They didn't grow up spontaneously. It's not a grassroots movement. It's a European anti-fascist commie movement. They're even named after their communist forebears. Okay, well, I'm sorry. Let's resurrect Senator McCarthy from the dead and have people actually be fired from government positions if they are conspiring to overthrow the American government. And let's stop accusing Republicans of wanting to overthrow the government because we want to return to the constitutional principles. When the Gadsden flag or the Appeal to Heaven flag is regarded as a danger to democracy, you've gone crazy. Okay, once you say the Betsy Ross flag is a symbol of colonial oppression, you're out of your flippin' mind. Okay, let's return to sanity. Let's return to common sense. Oh, and burn the schools down. Let's get rid of the nationalized school system. It was a mistake from the first. The school system, if you read the history books, John Dewey meant it to be a socialist operation to equip people to being little automatons to work in factories and serve the socialist order. It's not meant to teach kids to read and write. The Little Red Schoolhouse on the frontier plain taught kids to read and write. Kids could read and write out of the Bible. The literacy rate was not changed by nationalizing the Department of Education.
Well,
it's nonsense.
Well, the challenge
moms should stay at home and raise their kids. Okay.
Well, I heard the challenge put to someone: name one thing that's been name one test score or one metric for education that's gone up since the Department of Education was founded, and there just aren't any. Like, everything's gotten worse.
Another ironic thing to ask is the Department of the Environment. Name one thing that they've done in the last 50 years that's improved the environment. Because I hate to say it, the air quality nowadays in America is better than it was, better than it's ever been, better than it was before the Industrial Revolution. The environmental problem has been solved. The climate change thing is a complete fraud from start to finish. The only way to get a clean environment is to be wealthy enough to afford to clean up your environment.
Exactly.
So stop punishing the third world who wants to become first world. Stop punishing the people who are trying to build factories in poor areas of the world. And stop cutting them off from electricity. Stop cutting them off from oil, coal, and nuclear. That's the inhumanity, the actual evil of these people who are willing to see millions starve to death rather than put up a nuclear power plant. Are you out of your mind? These people are evil. They don't care about you. They're against you. They want mankind to die off. Now, let me also say one other thing. Earlier you talked about how many policemen there were in New York versus how many New Yorkers there were, and how many federal agents there were in the United States versus what the population was. But I lived through the COVID panic when there was not a single scintilla of evidence to show that there was even an epidemic going on. It looked like the flu to me. It looked like flu season to me, based on the numbers that I saw. And I knew those numbers were inflated. Not everyone does. Everyone cooperated. Even my church closed down, saying, no, you can't pray to God in public. But they left the bars and the strip joints open. They let the rioters into the streets because that was socially acceptable. We all bent the knee. The American spirit is no longer rebellious enough to rebel. If we're going to judge by the COVID pandemic.
I don't know how it would go if they tried that again, though. I guess we'll see. Because
we'll see. They're going to
try it again because obviously it seemed to work the first time around. I'm not sure how well it will go the second time around. A lot of
worked like a charm. It was a dress rehearsal for the one world order. I'm sorry, there was no reasoning behind it.
Oh, I agree.
They're trying to kill people off. I mean, is there anyone who refused the jab whose health is bad now?
No. I mean,
look at the people who got this.
Nobody who
messenger
who
RNA
regrets not taking it. There's nobody who regrets not taking it.
Right.
And I'm sure if you were to say that to the ones who regard this as a new sacrament would say, well, those people are dead, so how would they? But they're not. I mean, they're not dead.
They won't give you a reasonable argument because reason is no longer one of their values.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know what. I'm not sure how it would go next time around. I think people are warier now.
From high to low, it's in the hands of God. It's in the hands of God. We don't know if the Americans are actually going to act like Americans or if we're going to act like Australians who just turned their buttocks up to be kicked by your government when they took all your guns away. So, or the British. The British are even worse. The British have just turned over London to Britistan. It's just basically a non-Christian country. Even the famous atheist Dawkins said so.
Yes.
Okay. Now, here's why I have cause for hope. Because A, hope is an obligation of my religion. B, my church does have the secret of raising things from the dead. That's what we got started with. Okay. C, God is actually on our side. Everyone in a war says that, but this time it's true. These guys are anti-Christian, and we are.
They're not even hiding it anymore.
Okay. Now, that requires we be humble. That requires we be willing to be martyred. That's the way we took over the Roman Empire. It was not through force of arms. It was through... People were so shocked. The average Roman was actually shocked when they found out that the Christians who they were told were cannibalistic adulterers actually stayed behind during the plague years in Constantinople and cared for the sick and buried the dead not of their own families and did other acts of charity that shocked them, that shocked the world. If we live more charitably than our compatriots, the difference between the evil that they propose, they want to lower the population by 2/3, the world population. They want to murder 2/3 of mankind, for the sake of what? The Puritan tiger beetle, the spotted owl. Okay,
no, they're just into
because they hate us.
They're into human sacrifice.
They're just into human sacrifice. The Moloch worshippers. All you have to do to convince someone not to be pro-abortion is to show them what it looks like.
Well, that's why they want to.
Now, I say all you have to do, but if the enemy controls the news and the entertainment industry, you're never going to see it. So we have to get control of that. Now, here's the problem with everything I've been saying. The battle is going to be fought on all fronts at the same time. You can't stop the news from being fake news unless you get the government out of the news business, and you can't stop the government as long as the news is supporting them, and you can't stop the free market from turning into a plutocracy unless you get the government out of the free market and you get the news business out of the plutocracy, and you can't stop the anarchist, socialist, totalitarians unless you break them up, and that requires political will. That requires the political force, and so on and so forth. You can't get the church back on its proper course unless you devote your life to that, unless you actually become a priest or something. You see. And you got to stop arguing with your brothers. I actually think that this is no time for any Catholic to argue with any Protestant over any matter of theology. I don't care if he thinks Mary is a devil or not. Our enemies are going to destroy the both of us if we don't stick together. We're in the same foxhole, my Protestant brethren, and my faithful Jewish brethren. Any Jew who is actually a practicing Jew, who actually believes God is God and the Messiah is coming, you can't stick with these guys who want to destroy Israel. You can't stick with the guys who cheer. You can't stick with the homosexuals for Palestine. Okay, those guys are not your friends.
No.
You can't stick with Joe Biden. He is not your friend. But Barack Obama is not your friend, my Jewish compatriots. You and I can argue about whether the Messiah is going to come yet or whether he's already come later. Okay, but for right now, you're in the foxhole with us. Okay, so stop supporting all these things that you think are going to save your people from destruction. We're not your enemy. The evangelicals love you. They think Israel is fulfilling a biblical prophecy. They don't want to see Israel destroyed. We have to. The way to start this war is to get organized and to stop dividing ourselves. Let's not fall for the worst is better trick. Let's not fall for the divide and conquer trick. You see? That's where it starts. No, excuse me. That's not where it starts. Where it starts is in prayer and fasting. I mean, actually, give up, go into mourning for your sins. Put on sackcloth and ashes, my brothers, and let's actually get God to hear our plea. That's where it starts, but that's not where it ends. It might end in violence. It might end in. I don't think these people are going to give up that fight, but I also think a lot of them will. They're like a frog or a cat, which puffs itself up to look bigger than it really is. Keep in mind, the Soviet Union collapsed inward on itself as perfectly as a building demolition without knocking over any of the countries next to it when the Berlin Wall collapsed.
That's true.
We tend to forget that. There was not a major civil war in Russia when that happened. They had lost moral authority. The fight there was on the spiritual level, not on the physical level.
They lost the mandate of heaven.
The fight against us right now, they lost the mandate of heaven. They lost the will of the people. So the fight is over the hearts and minds of the people right now. But in order to get that, we got to get access to them, which means we have to get around the social media. We've got to get around the entertainment industry. We've got to get around the fake news. Without the fake news, we could solve the America's problems in 2 elections, maybe 1. You see?
Well,
so I think you can only build up so much pressure beyond the dam before it breaks. But on the other hand, I've been saying that for years, and I've been expecting the ice to crack and I expect the thing to shatter like glass. I don't think it's going to be a slow process of erosion. But I could be wrong. Maybe it is a slow process of erosion. Maybe we just have to persuade one person at a time that killing babies is wrong, taxing the poor into poverty is wrong, telling confused young women to cut off their breasts is wrong. We just have to persuade one person at a time.
Well, if you keep persuading one person at a time, eventually you'll trigger a preference cascade. So,
that's what I'm hoping.
Yeah. Well, I guess we'll see what happens. The truth is, the unfortunate truth also is that civilizations come and go, and maybe our time is done.
It may be our time. I mean, the good Lord did allow the Holy Land to be taken over by Babylon when they turned their back on the Lord. And we've turned our back on the Lord so much so that they're prosecuting the guy who knocked down a statue of the devil in a courthouse in I forget where it was.
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
So,
we're worshiping. Abortion is the worship of Moloch.
Yeah.
Gender theory is the worship of Lilith, and this socialist plutocracy is the worship of Mammon.
I agree.
So all these things are the old gods coming.
No, I agree. So
let's rally around to Christ. But we defeated them before.
Yeah.
I mean, we won before the previous go round. It might be our time to go, but it might be our time to start a crusade. I don't see that we've actually tried. It doesn't look to me like we've tried and failed.
Hang on.
It doesn't look to me like...
No, we're talking past each other here, because I don't think the church will fail, although we're in for a rough time. But
amen.
Perhaps Western civilization has had its day, is what I meant. Perhaps the social order has had its day. We'll see.
Perhaps, but my comment... We're not talking past each other. My comment was... That may be the case, but let's wait until after we actually make an honest effort to save it first. I do not think we've made an honest effort. I think the giant has not woken up yet.
True.
To refer to an old metaphor. Now, I do think that the Trump verdict might wake up some people who actually, even people who don't like Trump, might say, well, wait a minute, you can't just... If you prosecute your political enemies if you make it illegal to run for president... That's
doesn't end
Banana Republic stuff. That's
Banana Republic
That's
stuff.
completely, openly, nakedly corrupt.
Well, I think that's probably a good place to end. this brings season 2 of Against the Mountains of Madness to a close. We'll start recording season 3 shortly and start getting them out in the next couple of months. It'll be a much shorter break than last time. We're a bit better organized, but and I probably am.
And I should say to our
not going to be
listeners
changing
that
jobs twice. Go.
During those months, that's when you have to have those 10 kids I mentioned and start the crusade I mentioned and organize with your fellow Christians and with the Jews, who are at least the ones who are honest, the ones who are fear God. Get together with all of the God-fearing people and let's drive out this darkness and sin that is besetting our world. Let's at least try, because if you don't die with your sword in your hand, what are you gonna say to your honorable ancestors who did when you meet them?
We should have some other content that we'll be able to put out in the meantime till we're back, but we'll see you in a little bit. Thanks for listening. Like, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you soon.